Hi, I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this cute orangutan applique block. One thing I do want to point out before we get started is this is a little bit different than some of my other blocks because orangutans have these great big body and their heads tend to sit down below their shoulders. So this block, instead of just being cropped off at the bottom, is going to be, the body is going to go off the bottom and also off the sides. So just be aware of that before we get started. It's a slightly different configuration than most of my applique patterns. Here's how to make it. Okay, this is the video showing how to assemble the orangutan block if you do have a light box. So first of all, I'll just show you my light box setup. I've got light box, I've got it turned up as bright as it goes. I've got my placement guide, and I've got a clear silicone mat over it all. So I need to point out a couple of things about the placement guide. The orangutan is big, and I wanted him to very much fill the block. Remember that you are going to make your blocks at around 11 inches square. After they're all assembled, you're going to trim them down to 10.5 inches square, and then when you sew everything together, your finished block is going to be 10 inches square. And in order to do that, to get the shape of the orangutan, who has this very big body behind his head, his head comes kind of down below his shoulders, and I wanted to make the sides of his body and the bottom of his body all fill the frame. So imagine that you snapped a photo of an orangutan and you zoomed way in on his face. His shoulders are going to be cut off on the sides of your photo, and the rest of his body is going to be cut off at the bottom. But I didn't want you to have to tape together pattern pieces because that's super annoying. So what I've done is I have laid it out on the page, the 8.5 by 11 page, as best I can, but knowing that everybody's printer is going to cut off something on the sides and on the top. And every printer is different, and a lot of times what they cut off on the length is different from what they cut off on the side. So what you see here is an example of what things might look like for your printer. It won't have these lines here. I just have them in there to show you an example so you can more clearly visualize. So imagine that those lines are gone, but right around those lines is where your printer is probably going to cut off his shaggy body and also the top of his hair. So there are plenty of other markers that are going to help you position this guy even if you lose those outside edges. But it's very important when you cut the pieces out, his body piece in particular, you want that body piece to go all the way edge to edge on your freezer paper or on your fusible adhesive sheet. So this body piece is 11 inches square or 11 inches wide, but it's not going to print 11 inches wide. And you can see I've got a colored line here and here. This is where my printer cut off the piece, just didn't print beyond that edge. So I just used a marker and just continued that line and then cut it out so that as if the piece went all the way edge to edge on the paper. So other than that, the only lines that you need to transfer, you can ignore all of these dotted lines. Those are guides for if you do not have a light box. The only lines that you're going to need to transfer are the eyelashes, if you choose to use them, the eyebrows, if you choose to use them, and the smile, which you definitely want to use. And I like to trace those by just laying my piece down so that the light shines through the piece. And I just trace it with a fine tip Sharpie. It's a permanent pen, but that's okay because you're going to stitch over it with black thread. So on this one, I am going to just stitch the eyelashes, but not the eyebrows. I have another example that I will show you at the end where I've done both, but this one is just going to have the eyelashes. So here's how we put it all together. The numbers on the piece, remember, tell you what piece is what, but also tell you in what order to position them. So we're going to start with piece number 1, which is that big shoulder piece. And again, don't worry about lining up these sides. Worry about these little shaggy points up at the top. And as long as you get those in place, it's all going to be good. Okay, next is piece number 2, which is the top of his head, and those points got chopped off at the top, but that's okay because we have a whole bunch of other points that we can use. All those shaggy points are a little annoying to outline when you do your stitching, but they sure do make it easy to get everything positioned exactly where you want it to be. So I'm going to use some of these lower points to get that piece in place. That looks good. All right, now piece number 3 is the top of the head. I made this version in kind of fun, bright colors. Orangutans have orange fur, and their face is usually dark gray or even black. So I tried to duplicate that look a little bit by using a darker fabric in here, but I wanted him to be all orange. And then 4 is his lower muzzle piece. If you have trouble seeing these lines through, just press down. You don't have to press hard. Just make contact between the layers, and those lines will shine right through. All right, and now we've got eyes. The eyelashes definitely give you a guide for where these eyes are going to go, but I'm also going to use the lines here in case you didn't have the eyelashes in. So all of these colors are part of the cantaloupe blenders. So they're all the same hue, just different shades and tints of the same hue. So they all go together really well. And then I've got 2 nostril pieces. And there they are, all the way up at the top. One more nostril. So this guy actually isn't very many pieces. There's just some explaining to do about how to work that shoulder piece. And again, if you want to make this what I call emoji style instead of snapshot style, I really like snapshot style. I like to think of my quilts as almost like a little photo album. But if you want to make yours snapshot style, you can just use the face and just leave that shoulder piece off, and then the face can float in the middle of the block. All right, so I've got all of my pieces positioned. Now I'm going to carefully lift up that silicone mat, take it to my ironing board, and fuse this into place right on the mat. So that turns it into one big iron-on. I will wait for it to cool and then carefully peel it off, position it on my finished block, my final block, do that final fuse, and then do all of the outline stitching, and then I will bring it back here and show you the finished block, and also show you 2 other versions that I made with different colors, fabrics, and also another one that uses the eyebrows and one that doesn't use the eyebrows or the eyelashes, so you can see all of those options in there. All right, here is the finished orangutan. So remember, this is the one where I did the eyelashes and the eyebrows on it just to give it a little different expression. This one I did in realistic colors. All of these are from the Fox blenders and the Elephant blenders. They're both in the Animal Kingdom blenders collection, which are all kind of realistic animal colors. And I've got another one that I did in the same colors, the same kind of realistic colors. On this one, I made it actually even more realistic. If you look at orangutan faces, a lot of their faces are quite dark. So I did that on this one. The facial features don't show up quite as well. So this is an example where going slightly less realistic might give you a better look, really just depending on exactly what you're trying to achieve. So I wanted to show you both of those options there. And also, this is one that has no eyelashes and no eyebrows. And I've got one more. So this is a version that I made in slightly less realistic colors. These are the Cantaloupe blenders from the Farmer's Market collection. So they're softer oranges. And what I did to try and still get the same kind of colors that a real orangutan has is I used the lighter oranges on the outside, and then on the face, which normally would be gray or black, I just did it in darker oranges to get that same kind of contrast. And this one uses the eyelashes, but not the eyebrows. You could also, I didn't do an example, but you could also do just the eyebrows and no eyelashes. So you've got 4 different ways that you can make the faces different in this. So I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and I will see you next time.